The winter of Lin Yu's 18th year arrived without mercy. Snow pressed itself against the eaves of the Lin estate like a shroud, heavy and unyielding, muting the world into a pale, breathless silence. The servants moved quietly that morning, heads bowed, footsteps careful, as though even the sound of living might disturb something sacred, or something doomed. Lin Yu stood alone in the eastern courtyard, sleeves folded neatly over his hands, watching frost creep along the stone tiles. His breath bloomed white in the air before vanishing just as quickly, much like his place in this household. Since his father's death 3 years ago, he had learned to exist like that, briefly noticed, easily erased. Second young master. The voice belonged to Steward Chen, who never met Lin Yu's eyes unless ordered to. Madame Zhao requests your presence in the ancestral hall. Lin Yu's fingers tightened inside his sleeves. The ancestral hall was not a place one was summoned to lightly. It was where punishments were decided, marriages announced, and futures severed with ritual smiles. I understand, Lin Yu said softly. He followed the steward through corridors lined with painted screens, dragons and phoenixes twisting in gold leaf, symbols of prosperity that had never once bent in his favor. The Lin family incense burned constantly, thick and cloying, as if the ancestors themselves were desperate to remind him he did not belong. When he reached the ancestral hall, the doors were already open. Madame Zhao sat at the head, straight-backed and immaculate in dark silk, her hair adorned with jade hairpins that caught the firelight. At her right sat Lin Shu. His stepsister looked fragile today, more than usual. Her complexion was pale as rice paper, lips faintly blue beneath rouge meant to disguise the truth. A fur-lined cloak rested on her shoulders, and even so, she shivered. Lin Yu's chest tightened. Mother, Lin Shu said weakly, glancing toward him with wide, apologetic eyes. Lin Yu bowed deeply. Madam Zhao did not tell him to rise. Instead, she studied him slowly from the top of his neatly tied hair to the hem of his plain robes. Her gaze was sharp, calculating, like a merchant weighing spoiled goods. You are 18 as of last month, she said at last. Yes, and Omega comes of age at 18. Her voice carried no warmth. It is time you repaid the Lin family for raising you. Lin Yu swallowed. I have always done my best to serve, he replied. If there is something you require, there is, she interrupted. She gestured, and a servant stepped forward, placing a sealed document on the low table between them. The paper was thick. Official, marked with crimson wax bearing a military insignia. Lin Yu's eyes flicked to it, unease blooming in his stomach. Prepare yourself, Madame Zhao said coolly. In 10 days, you will be married. The words struck him with physical force. Married? His thoughts scattered. Married? Madam, I was not aware any match had been discussed. That is because your opinion was never required. Lin Yu's breath trembled. He lowered his gaze, heart pounding. May I ask? To whom? Madame Zhao's lips curved, not in a smile but in something sharper. General Han Zhen. The name echoed in the hall like a death knell. Lin Yu's vision blurred for a moment. General Han Zhen, the Alpha of the North, the Empire's most feared war commander. The man whispered about in tea houses and back alleys, always accompanied by lowered voices and dreadful embellishments. The scarred Alpha, the mad general, the one said to smell of blood even in peacetime. Lin Yu's knees nearly gave out. That must be a mistake, he whispered. I am only the second son. I have no dowry worthy of a general. You have exactly what he wants, Madame Zhao said. She turned her head slightly. Lin Yu followed her gaze. To Lin Shu. His stepsister coughed softly, pressing a handkerchief to her lips. When she pulled it away, Lin Yu saw the faintest stain of red. His heart lurched. The physicians have confirmed it, Madame Zhao continued, her tone brisk, efficient. Without treatment, Shu'er will not survive the winter. Lin Yu stepped forward without thinking. There must be another cure, another physician. There is only one medicine, Madame Zhao snapped, impatience flashing. A rare alpha-derived compound, refined from the Han bloodline. General Han Zhen controls it. The room felt too small, the incense too thick, and he agreed, she went on, to provide it, on one condition. Lin Yu's voice came out hoarse. He wants an Omega. He wants a spouse, Madame Zhao corrected, and you are expendable. The words landed cleanly. Precisely. like a blade between ribs. Lin Yu stared at the floor, at the patterns carved into wood polished by generations of kneeling. He thought of his father, who once brushed his hair and told him he would be free to choose his own path. He thought of Lin Shu, who used to press sweet cakes into his hands and whisper apologies when her mother scolded him. Slowly he lifted his head. "If I refuse?" he asked quietly. Madame Zhao's eyes hardened. "Then we will bury your stepsister before the new year." Lin Shu gasped. "Mother!" Lin Yu did not let her finish. "I will do it," he said. The words tasted like iron. Madame Zhao blinked, surprised by how quickly he had answered. Then she nodded, satisfied. "Good, at least you are useful." Lin Yu bowed deeply, his forehead nearly touching the floor. Inside, something cracked, not loudly, not enough for anyone else to hear, but enough to change him forever. That night, Lin Yu packed his belongings alone. He owned very little: a change of clothes, a jade pendant his father had left him, a few books with worn spines. As he folded them carefully, his hands shook despite his efforts to remain calm. A forced political marriage to a powerful alpha was dangerous enough, but General Han Zhen, an omega like him, untested, unmarked, prone to dangerous heats, was walking willingly into a lion's den. The rumors whispered through the capital returned to him unbidden, that Han Zhen had been scarred by fire and claws, that he had killed comrades in a rut-induced frenzy, that no omega had ever stayed by his side for long. Lin Yu sat on the edge of his bed and pressed a hand to his chest, feeling his heartbeat race. 10 days. In 10 days his life would no longer be his own. Yet as fear coiled tight around his ribs, another thought surfaced, quiet, stubborn, dangerous. If this marriage saved Lin Shu's life, if this was the price demanded of him, then he would pay it, not because he was weak, but because he was strong enough to endure. Outside, the snow continued to fall, covering the Lin estate in white, hiding rot, disguising cruelty, and preparing the road that would soon carry Lin Yu away, straight into the arms of a scarred alpha whose fate was already entwining with his own. Whether either of them wished it or not, the imperial capital lay 3 days' journey from the Lin estate, yet it felt as though Lin Yu had crossed an entire lifetime by the time the carriage passed beneath its towering gates. Stone walls loomed high, banners snapping sharply in the winter wind, black and gold, marked with the sigil of the Northern Army. Even before anyone spoke the name, Lin Yu knew whose domain he was entering. General Han Zhen. The carriage slowed. Snow crunched beneath iron-shod wheels. Lin Yu's hands rested in his lap, folded so tightly his fingers ached. He'd been given no bridal procession, no red silks, no celebratory drums. Madame Zhao had seen to that. "This is not a wedding of love," she had said. "Do not embarrass the Lin family by pretending it is." So Lin Yu wore pale robes, unadorned save for a simple sash, his omega suppressants tucked carefully into his sleeve. He did not know whether he would be allowed to use them once he arrived. The thought made his stomach twist. The carriage doors opened. Cold air rushed in, sharp enough to sting. A servant bowed and extended a hand to help him down. Lin Yu hesitated, then stepped onto the stone pavement. The Han estate was not like the capital manors he had glimpsed from afar. It was a fortress, severe, disciplined, built for war rather than comfort. Dark stone walls rose stark against the snow, watchtowers casting long shadows even in daylight. Soldiers stood at intervals along the paths, their armor polished, expressions impassive. Not one of them looked at him with open curiosity. That unsettled him more than stares would have. "Second young Master Lin," a deep voice said. Lin Yu turned. The man approaching was tall, taller than any alpha Lin Yu had ever met, and broad-shouldered, his military cloak clasped with iron instead of ornament. His hair was tied back simply, no jade or gold. A sword hung at his side, worn, not ceremonial. His face. Lin Yu caught his breath. The rumors had not lied. A long scar ran from Han Zhen's temple, slashing down across his cheek to disappear beneath his collar. Another traced his brow, pale and uneven, the mark of claws or flame. They were not fresh, but neither were they gentle reminders of the past. They were brutal, unapologetic, and yet, his eyes were calm, dark, steady, watchful, but not cruel. "I am Lieutenant Wei," the man said. "The general is awaiting you." Lin Yu bowed quickly. "Thank you." As he followed Wei through the estate, Lin Yu became acutely aware of the alpha presence around him. It was restrained, disciplined, but powerful, like a storm held behind iron doors. And at its center, they stopped before a pair of heavy doors. Wei knocked once, then pushed them open. The room beyond was warm, lit by braziers and filtered sunlight. Maps covered the walls, pinned with markers and notes. A long table dominated the center, its surface scarred by years of use, and standing beside it, Han Zhen. Lin Yu had imagined him 100 different ways in the past 10 days. None of them prepared him for the reality. He was massive. Not merely in height, but in presence. Broad chest, thick arms, posture honed by battle. His uniform was dark and plain, the insignia of his rank stitched with functional precision. But it was his scent that hit Lin Yu hardest. Alpha, not sharp or overwhelming, but deep, like iron, pine, and something warm beneath it. Safe, dangerous, grounding all at once. Lin Yu's Omega instincts reacted immediately, curling inward, alert and uncertain. Han Zhen turned, their eyes met. The room seemed to still. Han Zhen's gaze flicked over Lin Yu, not leering, not dismissive, but assessing. As if measuring the weight of something he had not asked to carry. So, Han Zhen said, his voice low and rough, like gravel smoothed by water. You are Lin Yu. Lin Yu bowed deeply. Yes, my lord. A flicker of discomfort crossed Han Zhen's face at the title. You do not need to call me that, he said. This is not a court. Lin Yu straightened slowly. General Han, that will suffice. Silence stretched between them. Han Zhen cleared his throat. The marriage contract has been signed. The ceremony will be brief. You will reside here from this moment on. Lin Yu nodded. I understand. Another pause. You know why you are here, Han Zhen said. Yes, and you are aware, he continued, voice firm but not unkind, that this marriage was not my idea of mercy. Lin Yu's fingers tightened. He forced himself to speak. Nor was it mine. Han Zhen's eyes sharpened. For the first time, something like surprise crossed his face. You were forced, Han Zhen said quietly. It was not a question. Lin Yu hesitated. Honesty felt dangerous. But lying felt worse. Yes, he admitted. Han Zhen exhaled slowly through his nose, jaw tightening. He turned away, staring at the maps on the wall. Then we are alike, he said. I did not request an Omega. I requested silence. Lin Yu frowned slightly. Silence? From the capital, Han Zhen replied. They do not like men who return from war with too much blood on their hands and too little interest in politics. He glanced back at Lin Yu, gaze heavy. You are the leash they chose. The words stung, but Han Zhen's tone held no cruelty, only bitterness. I will not touch you, Han Zhen said abruptly. Lin Yu froze. Not without consent, Han Zhen clarified. Not without need. This marriage exists on paper. You will have your own chambers. You will be fed, clothed, protected. Protected. The word echoed strangely in Lin Yu's chest. I will not mark you, Han Zhen continued. I do not rot safely, and I will not risk breaking you. Lin Yu's breath trembled. He had prepared himself for violence, for possession, for fear. He had not prepared himself for restraint. Thank you, he said softly. Han Zhen looked away again. Do not thank me. This arrangement will not be easy. Before Lin Yu could respond, a servant entered hurriedly, bowing. General, the physician has arrived with a medicine shipment. Han Zhen nodded. Send it to the Lin estate immediately. Lin Yu's chest tightened. It will save her? He asked before he could stop himself. Han Zhen studied him for a long moment. Yes, he said. If administered correctly, your stepsister will live. Relief crashed through Lin Yu so hard his knees nearly buckled. He bowed deeply. Then I am grateful. Han Zhen's gaze softened. Just barely. See that you do not forget yourself here, he said. This house has rules. I will learn them. Han Zhen nodded. Good. As Wei escorted Lin Yu to his assigned chambers, the weight of everything he had left behind pressed heavily on him. But beneath it, unexpected, unsettling, was something else. A fragile, dangerous thread of hope. Because the scarred Alpha was not a monster, and that, Lin Yu suspected, might be far more dangerous than any rumor. The day of the wedding arrived without celebration. No firecrackers shattered the dawn, no drums echoed through the streets, no scarlet banners fluttered from rooftops to announce joy or union. Instead, a thin veil of snow fell steadily from a sky the color of ash, coating the Han estate in muted white. It was a wedding stripped of warmth, befitting a marriage born of obligation. Lin Yu rose before sunrise. A maid he had met only once before entered his chambers, carrying folded robes in careful hands. She bowed low, eyes averted. "Second, young master," she said uncertainly. "It is time to prepare." Lin Yu nodded. "Thank you." The robes were not red. They were pale silver, embroidered only faintly at the cuffs with cloud patterns. Formal, dignified, but unmistakably restrained. The sash was dark blue, the color of mourning in some provinces. Lin Yu understood the message immediately. You are not being welcomed as a beloved spouse. You are being installed as a political necessity. He dressed himself slowly, fingers steady despite the weight in his chest. When the maid approached to arrange his hair, her hands trembled. "You're afraid," Lin Yu said gently. She flinched. No, I would never." "It's all right," he said. "So am I." Her eyes widened, then softened with something like gratitude. When she finished, Lin Yu rose and faced the mirror. The young Omega staring back at him looked older than 18. His face was calm, lips pale, eyes clear but distant. The jade pendant at his neck, the only personal item he had been allowed to keep, rested against his chest like a final tether to his former life. Outside, the bells rang, low, formal, unemotional. The ceremony was held in the ancestral hall of the Han estate, a severe structure of dark wood and stone. Incense burned faintly, not in welcome, but in acknowledgement. Guests were few, a handful of military officials, 2 imperial observers, no Lin family representatives. Madame Zhao had declined to attend, citing her daughter's fragile health. Lin Yu expected that. It did not hurt any less. He stood at the left of the altar, hands folded, head bowed. Han Zhen entered from the opposite side. He wore formal military robes instead of ceremonial red, his rank symbols stark against the dark fabric. The scars on his face were uncovered, no attempt made to hide or soften them. When he took his place beside Lin Yu, their sleeves brushed. The contact sent a jolt through Lin Yu's Omega instincts. He stiffened instinctively, then forced himself to relax. Han Zhen noticed. His hand shifted slightly, just enough to give Lin Yu space. The officiant cleared his throat and began the rites. The words blurred together. Ancient, vows of duty, lineage, obedience. Lin Yu repeated them when prompted. His voice steady despite the hollowness in his chest. When it came time to bow, to heaven, to earth, to each other. Lin Yu turned. Han Zhen faced him squarely. Up close, Lin Yu could see the fine lines around the alpha's eyes, the marks of exhaustion etched deep into his expression. He smelled faintly of iron and smoke, undercut by something warmer, steadier. Their gazes met. Han Zhen inclined his head first, not deeply, but respectfully. Lin Yu mirrored the motion. The final seal was pressed, the document signed, the witnesses nodded, just like that. He was married. No cheers followed, no blessings shouted. The guests dispersed quietly, as if attending a military briefing rather than a union of lives. When the hall finally emptied, silence rushed in. Lin Yu stood uncertainly, unsure whether to speak, move, or wait. Han Zhen exhaled slowly. "It is done," he said. "Yes," Lin Yu replied. Another pause. "I told you before," Han Zhen said, voice low. "I will not force what should not be forced." Lin Yu nodded. "I remember." "There will be no wedding night," Han Zhen continued. "You are free to rest." Relief and something oddly like disappointment tangled in Lin Yu's chest. "I understand." Han Zhen turned to leave, then stopped. "You may call me Han Zhen," he said without looking back. "When we are alone." Lin Yu's heart skipped. "Han Zhen," he tested softly. The alpha paused for just a heartbeat longer than necessary. Then he left. That night, Lin Yu lay awake in unfamiliar silk sheets, staring at the ceiling. The room was spacious, warmer than any he had known, yet it felt vast and empty. His Omega instincts hummed restlessly beneath his suppressants, confused by the presence of a bonded alpha somewhere within the same walls, so close yet unreachable. He pressed a hand to his chest. This was supposed to be safer than he had feared, so why did his heart ache as though something essential had been left undone? 3 days passed. Lin Yu learned the rhythms of the Han estate quickly. Meals were punctual, servants were efficient, respectful but distant. The soldiers greeted him with formal bows, eyes lowered, not out of disdain, but caution. Everyone knew what he was. The Omega spouse of a dangerous alpha. On the 4th day he was summoned. This time, not to a hall, but to the training grounds. The air rang with the clash of steel and shouted commands. Lin Yu stood at the edge, sleeves tucked neatly, watching as Han Zhen sparred with 3 soldiers at once. He moved like a storm given form, powerful, precise, controlled. When the match ended, Han Zhen dismissed the soldiers and turned toward Lin Yu. "You wanted to see me?" Lin Yu asked. Han Zhen nodded. "You should understand this place if you are to live here." He gestured to the grounds. "This estate exists because of war. I exist because of war." Lin Yu listened silently. "There will be blood," Han Zhen said. "Danger, politics. If you regret coming." "I do not," Lin Yu said. Han Zhen's eyes narrowed. "Do not lie." "I am afraid," Lin Yu admitted, "but I do not regret saving my sister." Something shifted in Han Zhen's expression. Tight, painful. "You should not have been made to choose," he said. Lin Yu met his gaze, courage rising quietly in his chest. Then he said, "Perhaps we can choose something else." Han Zhen stared at him. For the first time since they met, the scarred alpha did not look away, and in the cold air between them, something fragile, dangerous, began to take shape. The first heat came without warning. Lin Yu woke before dawn, breath shallow, skin burning beneath layers of silk. The room felt too small, too warm, the air heavy with a scent he recognized with dread even before his mind caught up. Omega pheromones. His heart slammed against his ribs. No. Not now. He fumbled for the suppressants kept beside his bed, fingers clumsy, vision swimming. His body felt wrong, oversensitive, trembling, every nerve lit with restless need and instinctual fear. He swallowed one pill, then another. It barely dulled the edge. His heat had always been irregular. His childhood physician once muttered something about unusual omega sensitivity. Stress worsened it. Emotional shock worsened it. And Lin Yu had endured nothing but stress since the day his life was sold. He curled onto his side, clutching the blankets, trying to breathe quietly. The last thing he wanted was to alert the entire estate, especially Han Zhen. He remembered the Alpha's words. "I do not rut safely." Cold fear slid down his spine. Hours passed, or perhaps only minutes. Time dissolved into waves of fever and trembling. His scent leaked despite the suppressants, sweet and aching, saturating the room, and somewhere beyond the walls. An Alpha noticed. Han Zhen froze mid-step in the corridor. The scent hit him like a blade to the throat. Omega? No, his Omega. His jaw clenched so hard it ached. He had ordered the servants to alert him immediately if Lin Yu showed signs of illness. Not heat, illness, because heat was something he could not afford to mishandle. The scent was wrong, too sharp, too uncontrolled. "Wei," Han Zhen said tightly. "Clear the east wing. No one approaches Lin Yu's chambers." Wei's eyes widened, then he bowed. "Yes, General." Han Zhen turned away from the corridor and pressed his palm against the cold stone wall, grounding himself. Control. Breathe. His rut instincts stirred in response. Deep, violent, demanding. He forced them down with years of discipline carved from blood and regret. "You will not hurt him." He waited, counted breaths. When the scent steadied, just barely, he moved. Lin Yu barely registered the knock. "Lin Yu." The sound of Han Zhen's voice cut through the haze, low and steady. Fear surged. I'm fine," Lin Yu lied weakly. "Please, don't come in." A pause. "I can smell your fever," Han Zhen replied. "You are not fine." The door opened slowly. Han Zhen did not cross the threshold. He stood framed in the doorway, shoulders tense. Eyes darkened but clear with restraint. He had removed his cloak, sleeves rolled back as though preparing for battle. Lin Yu's breath hitched. The Alpha presence pressed against his senses, not overwhelming but undeniable. His Omega instincts recoiled and reached at the same time, confused, desperate. "I told you I wouldn't touch you," Han Zhen said quietly. "That hasn't changed." Lin Yu swallowed, shame flooding his chest. "I didn't choose this." "I know." Han Zhen remained where he was, several careful steps away. "Do you need a physician?" he asked. Lin Yu shook his head weakly. They'll smell it. Everyone will." Another pause. "Then I'll stay," Han Zhen said. Lin Yu's eyes widened. "That's dangerous." "Yes," Han Zhen agreed. "But leaving you alone is worse." He sat down against the wall, back straight, gaze deliberately turned away. "I will not come closer unless you ask," he said. "I won't speak unless you need me to, but you will not face this alone." Tears burned behind Lin Yu's eyes. No one had ever offered him that before. Hours passed in fragile quiet. Lin Yu shook through the worst of it, heat crashing in waves that left him exhausted and aching. Han Zhen did not move, did not breathe loudly, did not allow his scent to leak beyond iron control. When Lin Yu whimpered softly in pain, Han Zhen spoke, only once. "Breathe with me. Low. Calm." He counted breaths aloud, grounding Lin Yu through the worst of the fever. Slowly, painfully, the heat ebbed. When it was finally over, Lin Yu lay limp against the pillows, soaked with sweat and utterly drained. Han Zhen rose at last. He crossed the room only long enough to drape a blanket over Lin Yu's trembling form. Their fingers brushed, both froze. The contact was brief, electric. Han Zhen pulled away instantly. "I'll have stronger suppressants delivered," he said, "and a healer who knows how to keep secrets." Lin Yu gathered his courage. Why are you so careful with me?" Han Zhen stood very still. "Because," he said after a long moment, "the last Omega who trusted me paid for it." Lin Yu's heart ached. "I trust you," he said softly. Han Zhen turned. Their eyes met. Something in the Alpha's expression broke, just a fracture quickly hidden. But Lin Yu saw it. "That," Han Zhen said hoarsely, "is exactly what frightens me." That night, Lin Yu dreamed. He dreamed of war drums and falling snow, of scars traced not with fear, but with reverence, of a child's cry echoing through a courtyard drenched in sunlight. When he woke, his hand rested over his lower abdomen. A strange warmth lingered there, unnoticed, unquestioned, for now. Winter loosened its grip reluctantly. Snow still clung to shaded corners of the Han estate, but the days grew longer, the cold less biting. Life settled into a fragile rhythm, one Lin Yu had not realized he was starving for until it quietly took shape around him. After the heat, Han Zhen changed, not in ways obvious to others, but Lin Yu noticed. Servants received new orders. Lin Yu's meals were adjusted, richer, warmer. His chambers were relocated farther from the outer wings, closer to sunlight and guarded corridors. A healer arrived, an elderly beta woman with sharp eyes and a sharper tongue, sworn to silence with a military seal. And Han Zhen began to appear. Not often, not intrusively, but deliberately. He would sit across from Lin Yu during evening meals, eating in silence yet never leaving early. He asked no questions that demanded answers, but he listened when Lin Yu spoke. About books, about the capital, about small things no one had ever cared to hear before. It was unnerving. It was comforting. One afternoon, Lin Yu found himself in the estate's inner library. The room was vast and underused, shelves heavy with military texts, maps, and battle records. Dust coated the corners, evidence that this was a place few lingered. Han Zhen stood near a table, armor discarded, sleeves rolled up as he examined a worn scroll. "You read?" he asked without looking up. Lin Yu hesitated. "Yes, come here." The command was soft, but instinct still tugged. Lin Yu approached, heart quickening, and stopped at a respectful distance. Han Zhen handed him the scroll. It was a journal. Lin Yu recognized the handwriting instantly. Neat, precise, haunted. "This is yours," Lin Yu said quietly. Han Zhen nodded. "Campaign records. Northern Front. You're letting me see them." "Yes. Why?" Han Zhen's fingers curled slowly. "Because you live here, and because someday people may try to use what they think they know about me against you." Lin Yu read a page. There were no heroic embellishments, no glory, only loss, weather, rations, names crossed out and never rewritten. "Is this where you were scarred?" Lin Yu asked gently. Han Zhen stiffened. "Yes." Silence stretched. "I was 20, Han Zhen continued. "The command misjudged the terrain. We were ambushed. I ordered a retreat too late." Lin Yu looked up. "You survived." "My men did not," Han Zhen said flatly. Lin Yu closed the journal carefully. "Survival is not guilt." Han Zhen's jaw tightened. "Tell that to their families." Lin Yu stepped closer, just a fraction. "You carry their memory. That matters." Han Zhen's breath caught. For a moment, the Alpha looked younger, raw. No one had ever spoken to him like that. That night, Lin Yu felt strange. Not sick, not feverish, just unsettled. He woke with a hollow nausea curling low in his stomach, unfamiliar and persistent. Food tasted wrong. Tea made his throat tighten. He dismissed it as lingering weakness from the heat. The healer frowned slightly during her routine check. Your pulse is steady, she said. But your scent. Lin Yu's heart skipped. What about it? It's changed, she said carefully. Subtle, warmer. Lin Yu laughed nervously. You're mistaken. The healer did not smile. Rest, she said. And avoid stress. Lin Yu did not tell Han Zhen. Not yet. The capital sent a letter 3 days later. Han Zhen read it once, then twice, then crushed it in his fist. Lin Yu saw him afterward in the courtyard, sword moving with brutal precision, cutting through air as if through ghosts. Something happened, Lin Yu said. Han Zhen stopped. They want an heir, Han Zhen said coldly. Proof that I am controlled. Lin Yu's chest tightened. They're asking. Yes. Han Zhen turned to him, expression carved from stone. I told them no, Lin Yu stared. You can refuse the emperor? I can, Han Zhen said. Once, he stepped closer, voice lowering. If they learn you are capable, I won't let them use me, Lin Yu said quickly. Han Zhen's eyes searched his face. You're pale. I'm fine. A lie. Han Zhen's hand lifted, then stopped, hovering midair as if he feared crossing an invisible line. If you ever feel unsafe, he said quietly, you come to me. No matter the hour. Lin Yu nodded. Inside him, something fluttered. That night, Lin Yu dreamed again, not of war, but of roots spreading deep beneath frozen soil, of warmth growing where none should exist, of a heartbeat that was not his own. He woke with his hand pressed to his abdomen once more. This time, the warmth remained, and deep within, something ancient and irreversible began to take hold, unseen, unspoken, binding him, not through sacrifice, but through life. Lin Yu knew something was wrong the moment he nearly fainted during morning prayers. The world tilted without warning, light draining from the edges of his vision, the floor rushing up too quickly. He barely had time to brace himself against the table before a pair of strong hands caught his shoulders. Lin Yu. Han Zhen's voice, sharp, alarmed. The alpha steadied him with deliberate restraint, hands firm but careful, as if holding something fragile and priceless. Lin Yu's omega instincts flared instinctively at the contact, then recoiled in confusion when a wave of nausea surged instead of heat. I'm fine, Lin Yu murmured automatically. Han Zhen did not release him. You're not, he said flatly. Sit. Lin Yu obeyed, breath shallow, the room spinning faintly. Han Zhen motioned once, and within moments the healer was summoned, her expression already severe. She took Lin Yu's pulse, then paused, then checked again. Her eyes flicked up, straight to Han Zhen. Leave us, she said. Han Zhen did not move. Her gaze hardened. You should not hear this second-hand. Silence stretched. Then Han Zhen nodded once. Tell me. The healer exhaled slowly. Your spouse is pregnant. The words fell into the room like a stone into still water. Lin Yu's mind went blank. Pregnant. Impossible. He hadn't been marked. Hadn't he? His hand flew instinctively to his abdomen. Han Zhen froze. For a heartbeat, Lin Yu feared the alpha might shatter. Rage, panic, denial. He had seen alphas react poorly to far less. Instead, Han Zhen went very still. How far along, he asked quietly. Early, the healer replied. Very early. Barely formed, but the signs are unmistakable. This Omega's body is receptive. Lin Yu's breath shook. There must be a mistake. The healer's gaze softened, just a little. There is not. Han Zhen turned to Lin Yu, not with accusation, with something far worse. Fear. I didn't touch you, he said, voice low, strained. I swear it. I know, Lin Yu said quickly, tears burning. I know you didn't. Understanding dawned between them. Slow, terrible, the incomplete bond, the heat, the instinctual closeness that had formed despite restraint, an unintentional claiming, a miracle, a disaster. This child, the healer said carefully, will be noticeable. Han Zhen's jaw clenched. Explain. Children conceived without a full mark often develop stronger omega-aligned traits, she said. Their presence amplifies pheromones. Concealment will be difficult. Lin Yu's chest tightened. The capital will come, Han Zhen finished. Silence fell heavy. The healer gathered her things. I will say nothing, but others will notice changes soon. Increased fatigue, appetite shifts, emotional sensitivity. Lin Yu let out a small, broken laugh. I already can't drink tea. Han Zhen did not smile. When the healer left, the room felt unbearably quiet. I never meant for this, Lin Yu whispered. Han Zhen knelt in front of him. The movement was sudden enough that Lin Yu gasped. The great Alpha, war hero, executioner of enemies, lowered himself so their eyes were level. You did nothing wrong, Han Zhen said fiercely. Nothing. Lin Yu's composure shattered. I didn't want to trap you, he sobbed. They already use you. If they find out I'm carrying... Han Zhen's hands trembled as he cupped Lin Yu's face. I will burn the Empire before I let them touch you, he said. The promise was not romantic. It was deadly sincere. Lin Yu looked into his eyes, saw not possession, but terror at losing something precious before he had even admitted wanting it. This child, Lin Yu whispered. Do you want it? Han Zhen's breath hitched. He pressed his forehead to Lin Yu's, scars brushing skin. I never believed I deserved an heir, he said hoarsely. But now that it exists... His voice broke. I will die to protect you both. Something in Lin Yu settled. Fear did not vanish, but it transformed. I don't want to be hidden, Lin Yu said quietly. Not forever. Han Zhen closed his eyes. Then we will choose the battlefield, he said. Not them. From that day on, everything changed. Han Zhen became relentless. Guards doubled. Routes altered. Lin Yu was forbidden from leaving the inner compound. Special suppressants were prepared, not to erase the pregnancy, but to soften its signal. At night, Han Zhen sat outside Lin Yu's chambers instead of inside, always near, never touching. Lin Yu would wake sometimes and smell him, steady, grounding, coiled like a watchful beast. His Omega instincts calmed at the scent, the child within him responding with warmth instead of fear. But secrets rot when kept too long, and in the capital, eyes were already turning north. One evening, as Lin Yu watched snow melt into muddy rivulets along the courtyard stones, a chill crept down his spine that had nothing to do with winter. A letter arrived. Imperial seal, summons. Han Zhen read it in silence, then handed it to Lin Yu. They want us in the capital, he said. Lin Yu's fingers tightened around the paper. When? 10 days, the same number of days that had once sealed his fate. Lin Yu looked up, meeting Han Zhen's gaze. This time he did not bow. Then, Lin Yu said softly, hand resting protectively over his stomach, we go together. Han Zhen nodded. And for the first time since the war, the scarred Alpha smiled, not gently, but like a man ready to fight fate itself. The morning they departed for the capital, the sky was the color of iron. Clouds hung low and unmoving, as if the heavens themselves were holding their breath. The Han estate stirred before dawn, soldiers assembling, horses stamping restlessly, armor whispering as it was secured. This was not a bridal journey, it was a march. Lin Yu stood at the threshold of the carriage, one hand resting unconsciously over his abdomen. Beneath layers of thick winter robes and carefully prepared suppressants, warmth pulsed faintly, steady, alive. Han Zhen noticed the gesture immediately. Are you dizzy? He asked, voice low. No, Lin Yu replied, just aware. Han Zhen nodded, then placed his cloak around Lin Yu's shoulders himself. The action was simple, almost casual, but every nearby soldier stiffened, an Alpha cloaking his Omega publicly. A declaration. Lin Yu's cheeks warmed, though not with embarrassment. Stay close to me once we arrive, Han Zhen murmured. The capital smells weakness like blood. Lin Yu met his gaze. So do predators. A corner of Han Zhen's mouth twitched. You're learning. The journey took 5 days. They traveled with a heavy escort, too heavy to be ignored. Villages they passed through fell silent at the sight of Han Zhen's banners, doors closing softly, heads bowing low. At night, Lin Yu struggled to sleep. The carriage's movement unsettled him. His appetite came and went. Sometimes, he woke gasping from dreams he could not remember. Only the lingering sense of being watched. Han Zhen adjusted. Without comment, he began riding closer to the carriage. At rest stops, he positioned himself between Lin Yu and everyone else, presence like an iron wall. On the third night, Lin Yu woke to nausea so sharp he barely made it outside before retching into the snow. Han Zhen was there instantly. He did not touch him, but he knelt beside him, cloak shielding Lin Yu from the wind, voice steady as he spoke quietly until the trembling passed. I hate being weak, Lin Yu whispered afterward, shame curling tight in his chest. Han Zhen's gaze was dark and unwavering. You are doing the strongest thing there is. What? Surviving where you were never meant to, Han Zhen said. Lin Yu leaned back against the carriage wheel, exhausted. For the first time, Han Zhen allowed himself to sit beside him. Their shoulders brushed, neither pulled away. The capital appeared on the horizon at dawn on the 6th day. High walls gleamed pale gold in the rising sun, banners fluttering like watchful eyes. Even from a distance Lin Yu felt it, the weight of power, of judgment, of countless instincts converging in one place. His scent shifted despite the suppressants. Han Zhen noticed immediately. He leaned closer, voice pitched low. Breathe, follow my rhythm. Lin Yu did. The alpha's presence wrapped around him, not possessive, not overwhelming, but anchoring. The flutter in his abdomen calmed, the child responding instinctively. When they reached the gates, imperial officials were already waiting, too many. Their smiles were sharp. General Han Zhen, one of them said smoothly. You honor the capital with your presence. Han Zhen dismounted slowly. You summon me, and your spouse, the official added, eyes flicking to the carriage. Han Zhen's gaze turned lethal. Look again, and lose them. The official stiffened, bowing hurriedly. Forgive me. Lin Yu stepped down from the carriage before Han Zhen could stop him. Gasps rippled through the group. He was pale, yes, but composed, graceful. His posture straight despite the weight he carried within him. I am Lin Yu, he said calmly. General Han's lawful spouse. The official blinked, recalculating. Welcome, he said carefully. His Majesty awaits you both. As they passed through the gates, Lin Yu felt it. Eyes, so many eyes. Alphas scented the air, brows furrowing. Betas whispered behind sleeves. Omegas stared with a mix of envy, curiosity, and unease. Something was wrong. The suppressants were failing faster than expected. Han Zhen leaned close. Can you walk? Yes? If not? I will, Lin Yu said firmly. Han Zhen nodded once, respect flashing between them. The palace corridors were colder than stone. Every step echoed. By the time they reached the waiting hall, Lin Yu's skin felt too tight, too warm. His heartbeat thrummed low and steady, not panicked, but different, alive. The doors to the audience chamber opened. The emperor sat upon the dragon throne, robed in gold and black, eyes sharp with age and cunning. Beside him stood several court alphas, high-ranking, predatory, curious. Their gazes locked onto Lin Yu immediately. The scent hit the room, subtle but unmistakable, pregnant Omega. The silence was instant, dangerous. The emperor's eyebrow lifted slowly. General Han, he said mildly, you have brought us a surprise? Han Zhen stepped forward, positioning himself half a step in front of Lin Yu. My spouse carries my child, he said clearly. That is all. The room erupted, whispers, shock, greed. The emperor leaned forward, eyes gleaming. An unmarked Omega, with child? Lin Yu felt the weight of it then, the realization that secrecy had failed. His hand moved instinctively to his abdomen. Han Zhen's voice dropped, vibrating with suppressed fury. He is under my protection. The emperor smiled. Oh, General, he said softly, everything in this room already is. Lin Yu lifted his head. Fear still lived in his chest, but it no longer ruled him. He took a step forward, standing beside Han Zhen instead of behind him. This child is not a bargaining chip, Lin Yu said, voice steady despite the pounding of his heart. Nor am I. The court froze. No one had expected the Omega to speak. The emperor's gaze sharpened. How interesting, he murmured. It seems the North has grown claws. Han Zhen did not move, did not kneel, did not bow. And for the first time the capital understood. This was not a forced marriage anymore. It was a bond forged in defiance, and it was already too late to break it. The silence in the audience chamber did not break all at once. It fractured. Whispers crept along the marble floors like snakes, slithering from one official to another. Alphas inhaled too deeply. Betas narrowed their eyes in calculation. Somewhere among them, Lin Yu felt it, intent sharpening into hunger. The emperor reclined back against the dragon throne, fingers tapping lazily against the armrest. An Omega who speaks, he mused, and speaks boldly. Lin Yu did not lower his gaze. My apologies if my words were improper, he said evenly, but this concerns my body, my child, and my life. A murmur rippled through the court. Han Zhen's presence beside him was immovable, not looming, anchoring. Lin Yu could feel the Alpha's restrained fury like a wall at his back. General Han, the Emperor continued, you surprise me. You petitioned once for distance from court politics. Now you bring us a matter of succession. This child is not a tool, Han Zhen said coldly, nor a symbol. The Emperor's smile thinned. Everything born of an Alpha's blood is a symbol. Lin Yu's stomach churned, not from nausea this time, but from understanding. They weren't interested in him. They were interested in what he carried. Your Majesty, Lin Yu said, voice steady despite the tightening grip in his chest, I was forced into this marriage to save my sister's life. I did not seek power. Several officials stiffened. Oh, the Emperor said lightly. Forced? Madame Zhao's shadow loomed suddenly in Lin Yu's mind. He wondered how much the court truly knew, and how much they suspected. Han Zhen stepped forward half a pace. The marriage contract was legal. Any coercion occurred before my involvement. The Emperor studied them both, Alpha and Omega standing side by side, unyielding. How inconvenient, he murmured. They were granted temporary quarters within the palace, temporary, but heavily guarded. Lin Yu recognized the truth the moment the doors closed behind them with a soft, final click. This was not hospitality. It was containment. Han Zhen tested the door once, subtly. Solid, reinforced. They won't let us leave, Lin Yu said quietly. Not without concessions, Han Zhen replied. Lin Yu sank onto the edge of the bed, exhaustion crashing over him. His body felt heavy, his senses stretched thin from the press of so many dominant instincts in one place. The child stirred faintly, just a flutter, like the brush of silk under water. Lin Yu's breath caught. Han Zhen noticed instantly. What is it? I think... It moved, Lin Yu whispered. For a moment, the scarred Alpha forgot the court, the Emperor, the walls closing in. His expression softened into something raw and reverent. Already? I don't know, Lin Yu admitted. Maybe I imagined it. Han Zhen crouched in front of him, careful, asking with his eyes. Lin Yu nodded. Han Zhen did not touch Lin Yu's stomach. Instead, he placed his hand over Lin Yu's, letting Lin Yu decide the distance. The warmth of that contact spread deep, grounding. I never thought I would feel this, Han Zhen said quietly. Fear like this. Lin Yu smiled faintly. I thought I was born to be afraid. Their gazes met. Something passed between them then, an understanding forged not by instinct but by choice. The first move came that evening, a knock, polite, insistent, an imperial attendant bowed low. His Majesty requests the Omega's presence for a private consultation. Han Zhen's eyes went cold. He will not go alone. The attendant hesitated. The request was specific. Lin Yu stood slowly. It's all right, he said softly. If I refuse, they'll find another way. Han Zhen caught his wrist. You don't know what they'll ask. I know exactly what they'll ask, Lin Yu replied. He squeezed Han Zhen's hand once. Trust me. The consultation chamber was warm, too warm. Incense burned thickly, laced with subtle pheromones meant to unsettle an Omega's balance. Lin Yu recognized the tactic immediately and adjusted his breathing, focusing inward. The Emperor waited alone. You carry yourself well, he said. For someone in your position, I have had much practice, Lin Yu replied. The Emperor gestured for him to sit. Your child is remarkable. Lin Yu did not sit. My child is not for discussion. The Emperor's eyes sharpened. Bold again. I am tired of being sold, Lin Yu said simply, a pause. Then unexpectedly the Emperor laughed. Ah, he said. So that is it. You are not ambitious. Lin Yu met his gaze. I am protective. The Emperor studied him anew. Do you know what you carry? A life, Lin Yu said. Nothing more, nothing less. The Emperor leaned forward. An unmarked Omega bearing an Alpha General's heir will destabilize the balance of court power. Others will seek to claim you, to pressure you. I am already claimed, Lin Yu said calmly. The Emperor smiled thinly. Not officially. The words settled heavily. Marking carries risk, the Emperor continued. For you, for the child. But it would clarify matters. Lin Yu understood the unspoken threat. Mark yourself, or be marked by the court. I will not be forced again, Lin Yu said. The Emperor's smile vanished. You forget where you stand. Lin Yu's voice did not waver. No, I remember exactly. Han Zhen felt it the moment Lin Yu's sense spiked. He was on his feet before the guards reacted. When Lin Yu returned, pale but composed, Han Zhen pulled him inside the room and barred the door. "What did he say?" Han Zhen demanded. Lin Yu exhaled slowly. "They want you to mark me. Publicly. Soon?" Han Zhen swore under his breath. "If I refuse, they'll try to separate us," Lin Yu finished. "Or worse," Han Zhen paced like a caged beast. "They'll use the child. They'll try," Lin Yu corrected. Han Zhen stopped. Lin Yu looked up at him, eyes steady despite the tremor in his hands. "I won't survive another forced choice," Lin Yu said quietly. "But if we choose together..." Han Zhen knelt in front of him again. "Grip tight but careful." "You don't owe me a mark," he said fiercely. "Not for protection, not for politics." "I know," Lin Yu replied. Then, softly, "But I want you to know this isn't fear talking." Silence fell between them, heavy and intimate. The bond between them, still incomplete, still fragile, hummed beneath the surface, aching. "Marking could hurt you," Han Zhen said. "It could trigger my rut." "I trust you," Lin Yu said. The words landed like a blade, and like a blessing. Han Zhen bowed his head, scars catching the light. Then, he said hoarsely, "We will do it on our terms, not theirs." Outside the palace walls, the capital buzzed with rumor and anticipation. Inside, two people who had once been traded like goods now stood on the edge of a choice that would shake the empire. Not because of power, but because for the first time, an Alpha and an Omega were about to claim each other freely. Night settled over the palace like a held breath. The capital did not sleep easily, not when rumors spread faster than lantern light, not when the court sensed a shift in power it could not yet name. Somewhere beyond the thick stone walls, factions whispered, plans sharpened, and patience thinned. Inside the guarded chambers, Lin Yu sat before the low table, hands folded, posture composed despite the storm inside him. Han Zhen stood by the window, staring out at the courtyard below. He had removed his armor, leaving only dark inner robes. Without steel and rank, he looked less like a general and more like a man standing at the edge of something irreversible. "You don't have to do this," Han Zhen said for the third time. Lin Yu smiled faintly. "You've already said that, and I'll say it again if I have to," Han Zhen replied, voice rough. "Choosing to be marked isn't bravery if it's done under pressure." Lin Yu rose slowly and walked toward him. "It isn't pressure," he said. "It's clarity." Han Zhen turned. Up close, Lin Yu could see the conflict tearing through him, the alpha instinct urging possession, protection, permanence, and the man's will fighting to ensure none of it crossed into coercion. "I've been forced my whole life," Lin Yu continued softly. "Sold, traded, decided for. This," he placed Han Zhen's hand over his own heart, "this is the first thing I'm choosing." Han Zhen's fingers curled reflexively, then loosened, giving Lin Yu space. "You understand what marking means," Han Zhen said quietly. "Once it's done, the court can't pretend you're unclaimed. But neither can you escape me." Lin Yu met his gaze, unwavering. "I don't want to..." The words landed. Han Zhen closed his eyes, breath shuddering once, just once, before he nodded. "Then we do this slowly," he said, "and safely. If at any moment you want me to stop, I will tell you," Lin Yu said. They moved to the bed, not in haste, not in fear. Han Zhen lit only a single lamp, keeping the room dim and calm. He prepared the suppressants, the stabilizing incense, the grounding techniques he had learned the hard way over years of barely restrained ruts. He sat at the edge of the bed. Lin Yu stood before him, heart racing, not with panic, but with something warm and resolute. "I'm ready," Lin Yu said. Han Zhen reached up, fingers brushing Lin Yu's wrist first, testing, asking. Lin Yu leaned into the touch, the alpha's scent shifted immediately. Deepening, grounding, wrapping around Lin Yu like a shield rather than a net. The bond they had skirted for weeks hummed to life, no longer accidental. Han Zhen guided Lin Yu to sit, movements deliberate and gentle. "Look at me," Han Zhen murmured. Lin Yu did. "I see you," Han Zhen said. "Not as an Omega. Not as a bargaining chip. As you." Lin Yu's eyes burned. "And I choose you," Han Zhen continued. "Not because of the child, not because of the court. Because you stood beside me when you had every reason to run." Lin Yu swallowed. "Then, please." Han Zhen leaned in, breath warm against Lin Yu's neck, but he stopped short. "Last chance," he said softly. Lin Yu lifted his chin, exposing the sensitive curve where alpha marks were placed. Yes, he said, I choose this. The bite was controlled, measured. Nothing like the violent claims whispered about in rumor. Han Zhen's fangs pierced skin just enough to anchor the bond, no frenzy, no loss of control. His hand braced Lin Yu's back, steady and supportive, as his scent poured in. Iron, pine, warmth, home. Lin Yu gasped, not in pain, but in shock at the intensity. The bond surged, not consuming, recognizing. The child within him reacted instantly, warmth spreading, a steady pulse answering the alpha's presence. Lin Yu felt it clearly now, 2 heartbeats, aligned. Han Zhen pulled back immediately, sealing the mark with a reverent touch of his lips. He did not deepen it, he waited. Lin Yu trembled, breath uneven, but his eyes were clear. I'm still here, Lin Yu whispered. Han Zhen exhaled, relief crashing through him so hard his shoulders sagged. He rested his forehead against Lin Yu's. So am I. They stayed like that for a long time. No words, just breathing together, the bond settling into something calm and enduring. The reaction was immediate. By morning the palace buzzed like a disturbed hive, a fully marked Omega, the general's mate, an heir secured beyond court manipulation. The emperor summoned them again, but this time the tone had changed. When Lin Yu entered the audience chamber, heads bowed, not to Han Zhen. To him, the mark at his neck was visible, unhidden, unashamed. The emperor studied it silently. So, he said at last, you have chosen. Yes, Lin Yu replied. Han Zhen stood beside him, hand resting openly at Lin Yu's back, not possessive, but unmistakably present. The emperor leaned back, fingers steepled. You understand what this cost me. Lin Yu met his gaze evenly. And what it costs us not to. A long pause followed. Then, the emperor laughed softly. Very well, he said. The North remains autonomous. Relief rippled through the chamber. But Lin Yu did not relax, because even as one threat retreated, he could feel it. A shift, a tightening. Not all enemies bowed to marks and titles. And somewhere beyond the palace walls, resentment was already sharpening into something far more dangerous than words. Han Zhen leaned close, voice barely audible. This was only the first battle. Lin Yu nodded, fingers curling protectively over his stomach. I know, he said, and for the first time, he did not feel afraid of the war to come. The palace quieted after the storm, not because danger had passed, but because it had learned to wait. Lantern light spilled softly through silk screens as night settled in, turning stone corridors into pools of shadow and gold. Guards remained outside their chambers, but farther now, their presence respectful rather than invasive. Inside, it was warm. Lin Yu sat at the edge of the bed, fingers tracing the faint rise and fall of his breath. The mark at his neck throbbed gently, not painful, not demanding, simply present. Like a heartbeat that wasn't entirely his own. Han Zhen stood a few steps away, as if still unsure he was allowed to cross the distance. The Alpha had faced armies without flinching, yet now he hesitated. You should rest, Han Zhen said quietly. Your body is mine, Lin Yu replied, lifting his gaze. And it's asking for you. The words were soft. They landed like a confession. Han Zhen's scent shifted immediately, warm, deep, unmistakably Alpha, but it did not surge or overwhelm. It wrapped around Lin Yu instead, answering rather than claiming. Say it again, Han Zhen murmured, voice low with restraint. Lin Yu stood. He crossed the space between them without hurry, hands settling lightly against Han Zhen's chest. He could feel the steady strength beneath. Scarred, real, his. I want you, Lin Yu said, not because of the bond, not because of the child. His fingers curled slightly in Han Zhen's robes. Because you see me. Han Zhen exhaled, long and shaky. He cupped Lin Yu's face with both hands, thumbs brushing gently beneath his eyes as if checking for tears. Then we go slowly, Han Zhen said. And if anything feels wrong, I'll tell you, Lin Yu promised. Han Zhen leaned in, but stopped just short, their foreheads touching, breaths mingling. The closeness was almost unbearable. Not hungry, not rushed, just full. When Han Zhen finally kissed him, it was careful. Warm, lingering, reverent. Not the kiss of an Alpha taking an Omega, but of a man meeting another where they stood. Lin Yu melted into it. His hands slid up, then hesitated, waiting. Han Zhen nodded once. That was all it took. They moved together toward the bed, layers shed not in haste but in quiet understanding. Skin met skin in small, meaningful touches, hands at the waist, fingers tracing scars, lips brushing along jaw and throat. Lin Yu traced the long scar across Han Zhen's chest with careful fingers. "This hurt," he said softly. Han Zhen's throat worked. It did. Lin Yu pressed a kiss there, gentle, unafraid. "This doesn't," Lin Yu said. Han Zhen closed his eyes. When they came together, it was not frantic or wild. It was grounding. A joining that felt inevitable rather than explosive. Two people finally allowing themselves what had been building in silence. Han Zhen moved with endless care, attention focused entirely on Lin Yu's reactions, his breathing, the quiet sounds he made when pleasure outweighed uncertainty. Lin Yu clung to him, not in desperation, but in trust. The bond between them pulsed softly, steady and warm, and beneath it all, the faint, undeniable presence of the life they carried together responded with calm acceptance. When it was over, they remained close, no rush to separate, no awkwardness. Han Zhen lay on his side, one arm curved protectively around Lin Yu without pinning him there. Lin Yu rested against his chest, listening to the strong, even heartbeat beneath his ear. "I was afraid," Han Zhen admitted quietly, "that if I let myself want this, I would lose control." Lin Yu tilted his head up. "You didn't, no," Han Zhen said. "I chose." Lin Yu smiled, small, tired, content. "So did I." Outside, the palace slept uneasily. Inside, for the first time since his life had been sold away, Lin Yu felt something settle deep in his bones. Not safety, not certainty, but belonging. And whatever storms waited beyond dawn, they would face them together. Morning came quietly, not with bells or proclamations, but with pale light seeping through silk curtains and the distant sound of palace guards changing shifts. The world beyond the chamber resumed its careful breathing, unaware, or perhaps unwilling to acknowledge, that something irreversible had already taken place. Lin Yu woke slowly. Warmth surrounded him, steady and grounding. Han Zhen lay behind him, one arm curved loosely around his waist, not possessive but protective, as if his body had learned Lin Yu's shape by instinct alone. For a moment, Lin Yu did not move. He listened, 2 heartbeats, one beneath his cheek, one deep inside himself, steady and unafraid. The mark at his neck pulsed faintly, no longer sharp or insistent, but settled. Claimed, yes, but more than that, recognized. "You're awake." Han Zhen's voice was low, still rough with sleep. Lin Yu smiled. "I think I was for a while." Han Zhen shifted slightly, careful not to disturb him. "How do you feel?" Lin Yu considered the question seriously. "My body is tired," he said, "but calm." Han Zhen exhaled in relief, his grip tightening just enough to be felt. "Good." Lin Yu turned slowly to face him. In the morning light, Han Zhen looked different, less like the scarred general of whispered legend, more like a man who had finally allowed himself rest. "You didn't leave," Lin Yu said. "I wasn't planning to," Han Zhen replied. Their gazes held. There was no embarrassment, no awkward distance. What had passed between them had not been something to flee from. Instead, it lingered, quiet, warm, enduring. The calm did not last. By mid-morning, the palace shifted. Lin Yu sensed it before anyone spoke, a tightening in the air, a subtle edge pressing against his senses. Alphas passing in the corridor drew their instincts close, restrained but watchful. Betas bowed deeper than necessary. Whispers followed like trailing silk. When Lin Yu stepped out with Han Zhen beside him, the effect was immediate. Eyes dropped, not in dismissal, in calculation. The mark at Lin Yu's neck was no longer something that could be ignored. It carried weight now, political, instinctive, dangerous. "They're afraid," Lin Yu murmured as they walked. Han Zhen nodded. "And when people like this are afraid, they either submit or strike." The first strike came sooner than expected. It was subtle. A serving maid tripped as she approached Lin Yu with tea, hands shaking just enough to draw notice. Han Zhen's hand moved instantly, intercepting the cup before it reached Lin Yu's lips. The liquid inside hissed faintly as it touched the stone floor. Poison. The maid collapsed to her knees, sobbing, swearing ignorance. Han Zhen did not look at her. "Lock down the wing," he ordered coldly. "No one enters or leaves without my command." Guards moved at once. Lin Yu's hand had gone to his stomach instinctively, heart pounding, not with panic, but with sharp clarity. They won't stop, Lin Yu said quietly. No, Han Zhen replied. They won't. The Emperor summoned them again before dusk. This time, the audience chamber felt different. Tighter, sharper. The smiles were thinner, the bows deeper but less sincere. You move quickly, the Emperor remarked, eyes flicking briefly to Lin Yu's neck. Some might say recklessly. I would say decisively, Lin Yu replied calmly. A few courtiers stiffened. The Emperor studied him, long and carefully. Your presence is disruptive. Lin Yu inclined his head slightly. I've been told that all my life. A beat. Then the Emperor smiled, slow and calculating. Assassination attempts within the palace are unfortunate, he said lightly. Such chaos reflects poorly on everyone. Han Zhen's jaw tightened. My mate was nearly poisoned, and yet, the Emperor said, unbothered, he lives. Lin Yu felt it then. The line, not spoken, drawn. You will be leaving the capital, the Emperor continued, returning to the north. For your Omega's health, the court murmured, exile dressed as mercy. Lin Yu looked at Han Zhen. Han Zhen met his gaze once, then turned back to the throne. We will leave at dawn, Han Zhen said, but understand this, Your Majesty. The room stilled. If harm follows us, Han Zhen continued evenly, it will not stop at the borders. The Emperor's smile sharpened. Threats from a general. Promises, Lin Yu said softly. The Emperor's gaze snapped to him. For the first time, Lin Yu did not look away. That night, their chambers felt different again. Not intimate. Strategic. Han Zhen oversaw preparations personally. Trusted guards, secure routes, decoys. Lin Yu watched from the window, hands resting protectively over his stomach, the faintest swell beginning to show beneath his robes. Are you afraid? Han Zhen asked quietly, coming to stand beside him. Lin Yu shook his head. No, he turned. I was afraid when I was alone. Han Zhen reached for his hand, threading their fingers together. And now? Lin Yu leaned into him. Now I'm aware of the danger, aware of the cost, aware of the strength they carried together. Outside, the palace loomed, beautiful, treacherous, already slipping behind them in spirit if not yet in distance. Whatever waited beyond its walls would not be gentle, but it would be faced openly, together. They left before dawn. Not with ceremony, not with banners or escorts fit for a hero of the empire, but with quiet efficiency and steel threaded beneath silk. The capital gates opened under the Emperor's sealed order and just as quickly closed behind them, as though eager to forget the danger it had failed to contain. Lin Yu watched the city recede from the carriage window. The capital looked beautiful from a distance, rooftops brushed with pale gold, towers rising serene and indifferent. It was hard to believe that within those walls, people had already decided he was something to be controlled, or erased. You're tense, Han Zhen said softly. Lin Yu didn't deny it. I keep waiting for something to happen. Han Zhen's mouth curved grimly. That's because something will. The escort consisted of 12 riders, veterans from Han Zhen's personal guard. They did not wear imperial colors, only muted armor and travel cloaks. Loyal not to the throne, but to the man who had once dragged them out of impossible battles alive. At the head rode Wei Shun, Han Zhen's second in command, a tall beta with sharp eyes and a permanent scowl carved by years of distrust. Wei Shun glanced back often, not at Han Zhen, but at the carriage. He had not spoken a word to Lin Yu yet. That changed at the first rest stop. They stopped near a forested ravine by midday. Horses were watered, supplies checked. The air smelled of pine and damp earth, cleaner than the incense-choked palace. Lin Yu stepped down from the carriage with Han Zhen's assistance. The movement drew attention, immediately. Wei Shun approached, expression unreadable. So, he said at last, bowing stiffly. You're the Omega, Lin Yu met his gaze calmly. I am... Wei Shun's eyes flicked, quick, assessing, to Lin Yu's neck, then lower, lingering just a fraction too long on his abdomen. You don't look like trouble, Wei Shun muttered. Han Zhen's voice cut in, cool as drawn steel. And yet, Wei Shun continued, unfazed. Half the capital wants you controlled, and the other half wants you dead. Lin Yu nodded. That's usually how it goes. Wei Shun snorted despite himself. Then he sobered. If you hurt him, Wei Shun said bluntly, turning to Han Zhen, I'll kill you myself. Han Zhen didn't bristle. He only replied, fair. Wei Shun studied Lin Yu again. more closely now. You don't smell like fear, Wei Shun said slowly. That's unusual. Lin Yu smiled faintly. I'm tired of it. Wei Shun straightened. Then welcome to the North, Omega Lin. You'll need that spine. It wasn't kindness, but it was acceptance. The first true threat revealed itself that night. They made camp beneath a crescent moon, firelight flickering across armor and tents. Lin Yu sat wrapped in a thick cloak, warmth pressed at his back, where Han Zhen sat behind him, silent and watchful. The bond hummed faintly, quiet reassurance amid the dark. Then, a whistle, short, sharp. Han Zhen was on his feet instantly. Down, he ordered. Steel flashed. Figures emerged from the tree line, fast, coordinated, masked, not bandits. Assassins. Lin Yu's heart hammered, but he did not freeze. He moved as trained, hands protecting his stomach as Han Zhen pushed him behind cover. The clash was swift and brutal. Wei Shun fought like a man with nothing to lose, blade flashing silver in the firelight. 2 attackers fell before they could reach the camp's center, but one slipped through, straight toward Lin Yu. Time slowed. Lin Yu saw the glint of the blade, the intent sharpened not toward him, but toward his belly. A shout tore from Han Zhen's throat, raw, feral. Han Zhen intercepted the assassin mid-lunge, taking the blow meant for Lin Yu across his shoulder. Blood sprayed dark against the dirt. The assassin did not escape. When the last body fell, silence crashed down, broken only by harsh breathing and the crackle of the fire. Lin Yu was shaking, but upright, alive. Han Zhen swayed. Han Zhen! Lin Yu was at his side instantly, hands pressing against the bleeding wound. It's not deep, Han Zhen said through clenched teeth. I'm fine. Lin Yu looked at him, really looked, and something inside him hardened. No, Lin Yu said quietly. You're not. They learned the truth from the assassin's mark. A sigil burned into flesh, hidden beneath the wrist. Wei Shun's face went dark. The White Fang Consortium, he said. Court-backed mercenaries. They don't move without noble coin. Han Zhen's jaw tightened. So the Emperor sends us away, and sends death after us. Not the Emperor, Wei Shun corrected grimly. Someone who benefits if you never reach the north. Lin Yu's mind raced. Then this isn't about control anymore, Lin Yu said. It's about succession. Wei Shun stared at him. You understand court politics disturbingly well for an Omega. Lin Yu placed a steady hand over his stomach. I've had to, he said. My child is inconvenient. Han Zhen's blood soaked into Lin Yu's sleeve, warm and real. The bond between them flared, not panicked, but fierce. This won't stop, Han Zhen said. They'll keep coming. Lin Yu met his gaze, eyes clear and resolute despite the danger closing in. Then we stop running, Lin Yu said. Wei Shun raised a brow. You have a plan? Lin Yu nodded slowly. Yes, he said. But it requires allies. Han Zhen studied him, this Omega who had once been sold to save another's life, now standing unflinching amid blood and fire. Who? Han Zhen asked. Lin Yu looked north, toward mountains rumored to shelter wolves who bowed to no throne. The Ridge clans, Lin Yu said, and someone the court believes died years ago. The fire popped loudly. Wei Shun cursed under his breath. Han Zhen smiled, sharp, dangerous, proud. Interesting, he said. The road ahead no longer led away from danger. It led straight into it. The mountains rose like teeth against the horizon, jagged, gray, and ancient. The northern ridge was not marked on most imperial maps. Only a blur of ink and warning notes where cartographers had decided it was safer not to know. The air grew thinner as the road narrowed, the wind colder, sharper, carrying the scent of pine, stone, and something wild. Lin Yu felt it first, not fear, recognition. The land feels alive, he murmured from the saddle. He had insisted on riding now, despite Han Zhen's protests. The steady rhythm soothed him, and the bond between them hummed softly with approval. Wei Shun glanced back, frowning. That's not comfort you're feeling, Omega Lin. That's territory. Han Zhen straightened. Ridge Clan land? Wei Shun nodded grimly. Deep in it, as if summoned by the words, a howl split the air. Not distant, close. The escort reacted instantly, blades half-drawn, formation tightening, but Han Zhen raised a fist. Hold, he ordered. From between the trees, figures emerged, not soldiers, hunters. They wore furs and leather, weapons carried openly but not raised. Their eyes glinted, sharp, assessing, unmistakably alpha-heavy. At their head walked a tall man with silver-threaded black hair pulled back at the nape of his neck. His presence pressed outward like a challenge, unashamed and unapologetic. His gaze locked onto Han Zhen, then shifted, straight to Lin Yu. The Alpha stopped. "So," he said slowly, voice carrying easily across the clearing. "The Empire finally sends an Omega instead of an army." Wei Shun bristled. Han Zhen moved slightly closer to Lin Yu. Lin Yu, however, met the stranger's gaze calmly. "We didn't come to conquer," Lin Yu said. "We came to survive." The Alpha's brow lifted. "Interesting answer," he said. "Most don't speak unless spoken to. I've found that waiting for permission gets people killed," Lin Yu replied. A pause. Then, to everyone's surprise, the Alpha laughed. "Good," he said. "I was getting bored." He stepped forward and inclined his head, not deeply, but enough to acknowledge equal footing. "I am Qin Ruhan, Alpha of the Ridge clans." Wei Shun sucked in a breath. "The ghost wolf?" Qin Ruhan's smile was sharp, only to those who deserve haunting. His eyes returned to Lin Yu. "You smell bonded, pregnant, and hunted." Lin Yu did not deny it. "You also smell," Qin Ruhan continued, "like someone the court regrets underestimating." Han Zhen stiffened. "Watch your tone." Qin Ruhan looked amused. "Relax, General. If I wanted you dead, you'd already be bleeding." A beat. Then Qin Ruhan turned away. "Bring them in." The Ridge clan stronghold was not a palace. It was carved into the mountain itself. Stone halls reinforced with timber and bone, warmed by fires that burned day and night. Clan members watched openly as Lin Yu passed, curiosity unhidden but not hostile, and among them, an Omega stepped forward, beautiful, cold. Their hair was bound in silver clasps, robes cut in the Ridge style but clearly tailored for status. Their scent was controlled, sharp, edged with something metallic. They stopped in front of Lin Yu. "So," the Omega said, eyes flicking to Lin Yu's stomach, "this is the Empire's precious problem." Han Zhen's hand moved instinctively, but Lin Yu lifted his fingers slightly. "It's all right." Qin Ruhan sighed. "Lin Yu, this is Shen Yao, court-raised Omega, recently escaped execution." Shen Yao smiled thinly. "Escaped is generous. I was released." Lin Yu felt it then, not jealousy, calculation. "Why?" Lin Yu asked directly. Shen Yao tilted their head. "Because I was inconvenient. Like you." The words settled heavily. Shen Yao stepped closer, voice lowering. "The court believes only one Omega can carry legitimacy in this generation." Lin Yu's stomach tightened. "And you?" Lin Yu asked. Shen Yao's eyes glittered. "I was meant to be that Omega." Silence fell. Qin Ruhan watched the exchange with keen interest. "Ah," he said softly. "Now this gets interesting." That night, Lin Yu stood on the balcony carved into the cliff face, cold wind tugging at his robes. Han Zhen joined him quietly. "You sensed it," Han Zhen said. "The danger, yes," Lin Yu replied. "But not from the Ridge clan." Han Zhen nodded. "From Shen Yao." Lin Yu rested his hands over his stomach, protective but steady. "They don't want my child dead," Lin Yu said. "They want it invalidated." Han Zhen's jaw tightened. Meaning they need to prove the child doesn't belong to you," Lin Yu said. "Or that I'm unfit. Or that another Omega's claim is stronger." Han Zhen's scent darkened. "They won't touch you." Lin Yu leaned into him slightly. "They already have. Just not with blades." Behind them, in the torchlit halls of the mountain, alliances were already shifting. 2 Omegas marked by survival, 1 child who could tip the balance of the Empire, and a clan that answered to no throne. The North did not offer safety, it offered truth. And the truth was this: the war had finally found its center. Mourning in the Ridge clan did not arrive gently. It came with the clang of steel, the echo of boots on stone, and the sharp cry of mountain birds cutting through thin air. Smoke curled from vents carved into the rock, carrying the scent of burning pine and iron. Lin Yu woke with a hand pressed instinctively to his stomach. The child stirred, stronger now. Not a flutter, a pulse. He inhaled sharply. Han Zhen was awake instantly. "What is it?" he asked, already sitting up. Lin Yu closed his eyes, focusing inward. The bond between them steadied him, grounding the sudden rush of sensation. "It's fine," Lin Yu said slowly. "Just different." Han Zhen frowned. "Different how?" Like it knows where we are, Lin Yu murmured. Han Zhen didn't like that, but before he could respond, a knock echoed against the stone door, 3 sharp raps, confident, unapologetic. Qin Ruhan entered without waiting. You're awake, the Ridge Alpha said. Good. We don't coddle guests. His gaze flicked to Lin Yu's posture, to the hand resting over his abdomen. You felt it, Qin Ruhan said. It wasn't a question. Lin Yu met his eyes. Yes. Qin Ruhan smiled, not amused but satisfied. Then it's time you learned what the court was afraid of. The council chamber lay deep within the mountain. Stone pillars carved with ancient runes supported the ceiling, and the air thrummed faintly, as if the mountain itself listened. Clan elders stood in a semicircle, men and women of all dynamics, their gazes sharp and unflinching, and standing among them, Shen Yao, dressed in pale gray, hands folded neatly, expression serene, too serene. Qin Ruhan took his place at the center. We convene under old law, he announced, and Omega seeks sanctuary while carrying contested blood. A murmur rippled through the chamber. Shen Yao stepped forward gracefully. Let us not pretend, Shen Yao said calmly, that this is only about sanctuary. Lin Yu felt Han Zhen tense beside him. Shen Yao turned to face Lin Yu fully. You were sold to save your sister, Shen Yao said, forced into a marriage meant to remove you quietly from the capital. Lin Yu did not deny it. I, Shen Yao continued, was raised to replace the Empress's bloodline. Educated. Prepared. Perfected. Their smile sharpened. And then you conceived. The words echoed. Why do you think they tried to erase me? Shen Yao asked the room. Because 2 Omegas cannot exist in the same prophecy. Qin Ruhan's eyes narrowed. Prophecy? One of the elders stepped forward, voice grave. The North remembers, she said. Long before imperial law, before court hierarchies, the Ridge clans recorded bloodlines not by titles, but by resonance. She gestured toward Lin Yu, an Omega whose body does not reject an alpha of war, the elder said, whose child responds to territory, whose scent stabilizes instead of fractures under pressure. Han Zhen looked sharply at Lin Yu. You never told me, he said quietly. I didn't know, Lin Yu replied honestly. Shen Yao's voice cut in. The child carries dual resonance. The chamber went still. An alpha-born heir, Shen Yao said, eyes gleaming, with Omega attunement. A bridge between dominance and creation. Lin Yu's breath caught. That's impossible, Han Zhen said. Qin Ruhan shook his head slowly. Rare. Not impossible. Shen Yao's gaze softened, for just a moment. That was meant to be my child, Shen Yao said. Through me, the court would have secured generations of control. Lin Yu felt something then. Not fear. Grief. You were never meant to be a vessel, Lin Yu said quietly. Shen Yao stiffened. You were made into one, Lin Yu continued. Just like me. Silence stretched. For the first time, Shen Yao's composure cracked. You think choosing love makes you free? Shen Yao snapped. The court will burn the world before letting that child exist outside their grip. Then let them choke on the smoke, Qin Ruhan said coldly. The trial was declared at dusk, not a judgment, but a claim. Under Ridge law, an Omega carrying contested blood must be tested, not through pain, but through truth. Lin Yu would stand alone in the stone vein, the heart of the mountain, where territory itself rejected lies. Han Zhen stepped forward instantly. No, the test does not harm, Qin Ruhan said, but it cannot be shared. Lin Yu reached for Han Zhen's hand. I'll do it, Lin Yu said. Han Zhen searched his face. You don't have to prove anything. I know, Lin Yu replied. This isn't for them. He glanced at Shen Yao. It's for the child. The stone vein was warm, alive. Lin Yu stood barefoot on ancient rock, hands steady at his sides. The mountain hummed beneath him, low and deep, vibrating through bone and blood. He closed his eyes. He did not resist. He did not plead. He simply was. The response was immediate. The air shifted. A low resonance filled the chamber, not alpha pressure, not Omega submission, but something balanced. Whole. The elders gasped. Outside, Han Zhen staggered as the bond flared, stronger than ever, steadying rather than consuming. Inside Lin Yu, the child answered, clear, present, unafraid. When Lin Yu stepped out, the elders bowed, not to Han Zhen, to him. Qin Ruhan smiled grimly. The mountain has chosen. Shen Yao stared, shock, grief, and something like awe warring in their eyes. So that's it, Shenyao whispered. Lin Yu met their gaze gently. It doesn't have to be an ending. Shenyao laughed softly, broken, bitter. We'll see, they said. Far to the south, unseen and impatient, the imperial court began to move. But the north had already answered, and for the first time, the future no longer belonged to the throne. Snow fell that night. Not thick, not violent, just a quiet drifting of white that softened the jagged edges of the northern ridge. It clung to stone and pine alike, turning the mountain into something hushed and reverent, as though the land itself were holding its breath. Lin Yu stood at the balcony again, wrapped in a heavy fur cloak. The stone vein's echo had faded from his bones, but its certainty remained. He felt changed, not elevated, not powerful, rooted. You shouldn't be standing in the cold. Han Zhen's voice came from behind him, low and gentle. Lin Yu smiled without turning. You always say that, and you always ignore me, Han Zhen replied, stepping closer. He draped another layer over Lin Yu's shoulders anyway, careful and practiced, as if this simple act mattered as much as guarding him with steel. It helps me think, Lin Yu said softly. Han Zhen leaned against the stone beside him, close enough that their shoulders touched. What are you thinking about? Lin Yu watched the snow drift past the torchlight. That I've spent my whole life bracing for the moment something would be taken from me, Lin Yu said. And now that I finally have something, I'm afraid of how much I want it. Han Zhen was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I've spent my whole life believing I wasn't allowed to want anything at all. Lin Yu turned then. Han Zhen's face was bare in the cold, scars softened by moonlight, eyes steady but unguarded. He did not look like a general in that moment. He looked like a man who had chosen. You want this? Lin Yu asked quietly. Han Zhen did not hesitate. I want you. Lin Yu's breath caught. Not because the words were surprising, but because they were spoken without weight, without expectation. Just truth. You don't look at me like the world does, Lin Yu said. Like I'm fragile, or valuable, or dangerous. How do I look at you? Han Zhen asked. Lin Yu reached up, fingers brushing the scar at Han Zhen's jaw. Like I'm real. Han Zhen covered Lin Yu's hand with his own. You are, he said. And you make me real too. Later, inside the warmth of their chamber, the fire crackled softly. They lay together beneath layered furs, bodies close but unhurried. Lin Yu rested half against Han Zhen's chest, listening to the steady rhythm beneath, strong, constant, reassuring. Han Zhen's hand rested over Lin Yu's stomach now without thinking, thumb tracing slow, absent circles. The child responded, not with movement this time, but warmth. Han Zhen stilled, breath catching. It's doing that again. Lin Yu smiled. It likes you. Something in Han Zhen's expression broke open. Quiet, unguarded wonder. I've faced death without flinching, Han Zhen said hoarsely. But this, he swallowed, this terrifies me. Lin Yu tilted his head up to meet his gaze. Why? Because I finally understand what it means to lose, Han Zhen said, and I don't know how to survive it. Lin Yu reached up, cupping Han Zhen's face with gentle hands. Then don't lose, Lin Yu said simply. Han Zhen laughed softly, a sound rarely heard, rough around the edges. You make it sound easy. It isn't, Lin Yu replied, but it's worth choosing every day. Han Zhen leaned down, pressing a kiss to Lin Yu's forehead, lingering, reverent, then another to his temple, another to his lips, slow, unhurried, a promise rather than a claim. They did not rush toward heat or instinct this time. What passed between them was quieter, hands exploring familiar ground, reassurance layered over desire, affection woven through touch. When Lin Yu shifted closer, Han Zhen welcomed him without urgency, without hunger that demanded. Just closeness, just us. Afterward, they lay tangled together, Lin Yu's head tucked beneath Han Zhen's chin. Shenyao will make a move, Han Zhen said, eventually. Lin Yu nodded. I know. You're not afraid? I am, Lin Yu admitted. But not of them. Han Zhen tilted his head slightly. Then of what? Lin Yu considered it carefully. Of the future, Lin Yu said. Because for the first time, it feels like something I'm allowed to imagine. Han Zhen tightened his arm around him. Imagine it with me, he said. Lin Yu closed his eyes, listening to the mountain breathe, the fire crackle, the child rest peacefully between them. I already am, he whispered. Outside, snow continued to fall, quiet, relentless, reshaping the land not by force but by presence. And for now, in the heart of the north, love held fast against a world that had never meant to allow it. The north did not wake gently. Before dawn, the ridge stronghold stirred with tension sharp enough to taste. Wolves howled from the upper cliffs, not alarm but warning, the kind that said someone has crossed a line they cannot uncross. Lin Yu woke with his heart racing, not fear, urgency. He sat up slowly, one hand braced against the bed, the other instinctively at his stomach. The child was restless, no longer calm warmth, but a subtle, insistent pressure, like a pulse echoing outward. Han Zhen was awake immediately. "You felt it too," he said. Lin Yu nodded. "Something's wrong." Han Zhen was already reaching for his outer robe when the door burst open. Wei Shun strode in, blood on his sleeve and fury written into every sharp line of his face. "Breach," he said flatly. "Internal." Han Zhen froze. "How many?" "We caught 2 before they reached the inner ring," Wei Shun continued. "They weren't assassins." Lin Yu's breath hitched. "Then what were they?" Wei Shun's jaw tightened. "Messengers." The council chamber was chaos. Ridge warriors stood tense along the walls, weapons bare. Elders argued in low, furious voices. At the center of it all stood Qin Ruhan, still, silent, dangerous, and kneeling before him. Shen Yao. Their hands were bound, robes torn at the hem, silver hair disheveled for the first time since Lin Yu had met them. Lin Yu felt it then. Not triumph, not anger. Pain. "You sent word to the court," Qin Ruhan said quietly, using ridge signals, old codes. Shen Yao lifted their head. "Yes," they said. Han Zhen moved instinctively to block Lin Yu, but Lin Yu stepped forward anyway. "Why?" Lin Yu asked softly. Shen Yao's eyes flickered to him, raw, exposed. "Because they promised to spare you," Shen Yao said. The chamber went still. Lin Yu stared at them. "They promised," Shen Yao continued, voice trembling despite clear effort to steady it, "that if I gave them confirmation, proof of dual resonance, proof of the child, they would leave you alive." Han Zhen exploded. "You endangered him. Enough." Qin Ruhan snapped. Lin Yu raised his hand slightly. Han Zhen stopped instantly. Lin Yu walked closer until he stood directly in front of Shen Yao. "They lie," Lin Yu said gently. "You know that." Shen Yao laughed, a small broken sound. "Of course I do." Their shoulders sagged. "But I needed to believe something," Shen Yao whispered. "Because if I didn't, then everything they did to me was for nothing." Lin Yu knelt. The movement shocked the chamber. "You were never nothing," Lin Yu said quietly. "They made you into a weapon, just as they tried to make me into a vessel." Shen Yao's composure finally shattered. Tears streaked down their face, silent and furious. "I didn't want to hate you," Shen Yao said. "I wanted you to be weak, or cruel, or undeserving." They looked up at Lin Yu. "But you weren't." Lin Yu reached out, not touching, but close enough to be felt. "You still have a choice," Lin Yu said. Qin Ruhan's voice cut. "The court is already moving. Your message was incomplete, but enough." Wei Shun swore. "Scouts confirm movement in the southern passes. Imperial banners. War." Han Zhen's scent flared iron and storm. "They're coming for him." "For us," Qin Ruhan corrected. They did not have the luxury of time. By dusk, the Ridge clan prepared for siege. Fires were banked, traps armed, hidden paths sealed. The mountain became what it had always been, a fortress disguised as wilderness. Lin Yu was ushered to the inner chambers against his will. "I won't hide," he said firmly. Han Zhen cupped his face, pressing his forehead to Lin Yu's. "You won't," Han Zhen said. "But you'll stay alive." Lin Yu searched his eyes. "You're going to fight, yes. You might not come back," Lin Yu said. Han Zhen smiled faintly. "I always come back." Lin Yu swallowed. Then he leaned in and kissed Han Zhen. Not softly this time, not carefully, desperately. Han Zhen responded instantly, arms tightening as if memorizing the weight of him, the warmth, the reality. "If this ends badly," Lin Yu began. "It won't," Han Zhen said fiercely. "But if it does," Lin Yu continued, voice steady despite the tremor beneath it. "Know that loving you was the first thing in my life that wasn't taken from me." Han Zhen closed his eyes, breath shuddering. "Then I'll protect it," he said hoarsely, "even if I have to defy the world." Night fell. From the highest ridge, imperial torches flickered like a crawling constellation. The court had come north, not with law, not with negotiation, with force. Inside the mountain, Lin Yu sat alone for the first time in days. He placed both hands over his stomach. "I know," he whispered to the child. "I feel it too." The warmth answered, not frightened, ready. Far below, steel met stone, and above it all, something ancient stirred, something the Empire had forgotten. Love, once claimed, does not retreat quietly. The first horn sounded at midnight. Low, hollow, ancient. It echoed through the northern ridge like a living thing, vibrating through stone and bone alike. Lin Yu felt it in his chest before he heard it fully, his breath hitching as the sound rolled through the mountain's veins. The child reacted instantly. Not fear. Focus. Lin Yu gasped softly, fingers curling into the furs beneath him as warmth surged outward from his core. Steady, resonant, grounding. The stone vein answered, the faint hum he had felt before rising again, stronger now. "You feel it too," Lin Yu whispered. Outside, steel rang against stone. Han Zhen stood at the forward ridge, sword already slick with blood. The Imperial troops had underestimated the north. They always did. The Ridge clan did not fight in lines. They fought like the land itself, striking from above, from shadow, from paths that vanished as soon as they were used. Traps swallowed soldiers whole. Arrows fell like rain, guided by instinct rather than sight. Han Zhen moved through it all with terrifying clarity. Not reckless, purposeful. But even as he cut down another soldier bearing the Emperor's crest, something tugged sharply at his bond. Lin Yu, a spike of pain. Controlled, distant, but unmistakable. Han Zhen swore and turned sharply toward the mountain. Lin Yu doubled over as the pressure peaked. It wasn't pain in the usual sense. It was calling. The stone vein glowed faintly beneath his feet, lines of warmth threading through the rock like veins of fire. The elders had warned him. Resonance would respond to threat. But they hadn't said it would feel like this, like the mountain itself was asking him a question. "Will you stand?" "I can't just wait," Lin Yu whispered, breath unsteady. Wei Shun stood at the chamber entrance, blade drawn. "You're not going anywhere." Lin Yu looked up at him. "I'm not running," Lin Yu said calmly. "I'm answering." Wei Shun hesitated, then cursed. "Damn you," he muttered. "You really are his mate." The turning point came fast. Imperial forces breached the outer ridge, pushing deeper than expected. Fire arrows streaked through the night, smoke curling into the sky. Han Zhen cut his way through to the choke point, and froze. A familiar banner rose above the Imperial ranks. Gold-threaded silk, court guard, personal, they sent him, Han Zhen breathed. The commander stepped forward. Lord Zhao, Madame Zhao's brother, the architect. His eyes gleamed when he saw Han Zhen. "General," Lord Zhao called smoothly. "Hand over the Omega. This ends now." Han Zhen's grip tightened. "Over my dead body." Zhao smiled. "That can be arranged." The clash was brutal. Han Zhen fought like a man possessed, but Zhao was no fool. He fought with precision, calculation, every strike aimed not to kill, but to delay, because Zhao wasn't waiting for victory. He was waiting for Lin Yu. The mountain shook, not from siege engines, from within. Lin Yu emerged onto the high stone terrace overlooking the battlefield, moonlight washing him in pale silver. His mark glowed faintly, his scent carrying, clear, steady, impossible to ignore. Every alpha froze, Imperial, Ridge, all felt it. Balance, presence. Lin Yu raised his voice, not shouting, not commanding. Simply speaking. "This land has chosen," Lin Yu said, the words carried by resonance rather than volume. "And so have I." Lord Zhao's eyes widened. "What are you doing?" he hissed. Lin Yu's gaze found Han Zhen instantly across the chaos. "You said you'd protect what matters," Lin Yu said softly. Han Zhen felt the bond surge. Warm, fierce, unbreakable. "And I said I'd stand with you," Lin Yu continued. The stone vein answered. The ground beneath the Imperial troops split, not violently, but decisively. Paths collapsed, traps awakened. The mountain closed around its own. Ridge warriors surged forward with renewed force. Lord Zhao stumbled back, disbelief etched into his face. "This is treason," he spat. "No," Lin Yu replied calmly. "This is refusal." Han Zhen reached him then, bloodied, breathless, alive. He caught Lin Yu against his chest, hands trembling despite himself. "You shouldn't have come out," Han Zhen said hoarsely. Lin Yu pressed his forehead to Han Zhen's. I wasn't safe without you, Lin Yu said, and you weren't complete without me. The words settled between them. Simple, devastatingly true. Behind them the imperial line broke. The court had brought an army. The north had answered with truth. By dawn, the mountain was quiet again. Imperial banners lay torn and abandoned. Survivors fled south, carrying fear instead of victory. Lin Yu sat wrapped in Han Zhen's cloak, exhaustion finally claiming him. Han Zhen knelt beside him, refusing to let go, thumb brushing slow circles over Lin Yu's hand. The child rested, content, steady. Qin Ruohan approached, blood on his blade, satisfaction in his eyes. The Empire will not forget this, he said. Han Zhen looked up. Neither will we. Qin Ruohan turned to Lin Yu and inclined his head deeply. Wolf Mother, he said quietly. The North stands with you. Lin Yu closed his eyes, leaning into Han Zhen's warmth. For the first time, the world had tried to take love by force, and for the first time, love had fought back. The mountain did not celebrate victory. It endured it. Dawn crept slowly over the northern ridge, pale light revealing the scars left behind. Broken stone, blood-darkened snow, shattered banners abandoned in retreat. Smoke thinned into mist, rising like ghosts toward the sky. Lin Yu woke to quiet, not the heavy silence of fear, but the gentle stillness that followed survival. His body ached, not sharply but deeply, the kind of ache that came from giving more than he had known he possessed. He lay on his side, wrapped in warmth, breathing slow and even. Han Zhen sat beside him awake. He had not slept. His armor was gone, replaced by simple robes, his scars freshly cleaned. One hand rested lightly over Lin Yu's, as if afraid that letting go, even for a moment, might make everything unravel. You're staring, Lin Yu murmured without opening his eyes. Han Zhen's breath hitched. You're awake. Lin Yu smiled faintly and opened his eyes. I was dreaming. Han Zhen leaned forward instantly. About what? Lin Yu shifted carefully, wincing only a little. About quiet. About a place where no one is chasing us. Han Zhen swallowed. We're not safe yet. I know, Lin Yu said, but we're here. That matters. The council convened by noon, not as a trial, not as judgment, as acknowledgement. Qin Ruohan stood at the head, his presence relaxed for the first time since the siege. The elders flanked him, faces solemn, resolute. The Empire crossed a line, Qin Ruohan said. By blood and by law. He turned to Lin Yu. You answered the mountain. It answered you. An elder stepped forward, placing a carved stone token into Lin Yu's hands. It was warm to the touch, etched with the sigil of the ridge. By old law, she said, you are recognized as sanctum-bearer. Any who raise steel against you on this land will face the mountain itself. Lin Yu's fingers curled around the token. He did not feel triumphant. He felt settled. Han Zhen watched him, pride softening his hard lines. Shen Yao was brought forward last. They looked smaller than before, no longer polished, no longer sharp, just tired. I won't run, Shen Yao said quietly, and I won't deny what I did. Qin Ruohan studied them. You betrayed us, yes, Shen Yao said, but not him. They looked at Lin Yu. I believed the court would spare you, Shen Yao said softly. I was wrong, and I accept whatever judgment you pass. The chamber fell silent. Lin Yu stood slowly. Han Zhen reached out, but Lin Yu squeezed his hand once, steady. I don't want your punishment, Lin Yu said. Shen Yao blinked. Then what do you want? I want you to live without being owned, Lin Yu replied. Without trying to replace me, without trying to prove you mattered. Shen Yao's breath shook. You matter, Lin Yu said. You always did. Tears fell freely now. Qin Ruohan exhaled slowly. You will remain here, under watch, not as prisoner, but as kin. Shen Yao bowed deeply. Thank you. That night, Lin Yu and Han Zhen sat together beneath the open sky, stars scattered overhead, sharp and bright in the thin mountain air. A fire burned low beside them, warmth steady and reassuring. Lin Yu leaned against Han Zhen's shoulder. Do you regret it? Lin Yu asked softly. Regret what? Han Zhen asked. Defying the Empire. Binding yourself to me. Choosing this life. Han Zhen did not answer immediately. Then he said, I regret every day I spent believing I didn't deserve this. Lin Yu smiled. Han Zhen's hand slid over Lin Yu's stomach, protective, familiar. The court will strike again, Han Zhen said. But not like this, they're afraid now. Lin Yu nodded. Fear makes them reckless, and love makes us dangerous, Han Zhen added quietly. Lin Yu turned his head, pressing a gentle kiss to Han Zhen's jaw. Love makes us human, Lin Yu corrected. Han Zhen laughed softly. Far to the south, imperial messengers rode hard, carrying news the throne would not welcome. An Omega had refused, an Alpha had followed, and the North had remembered its power. But here, in the quiet after fire, Lin Yu rested with one hand over his child, the other entwined with the man who had chosen him freely. For the first time, his future was not something to survive, it was something to live. Epilogue. The first snow fell the night Lin Yu went into labor. It came quietly, drifting down from a sky heavy with stars, softening the sharp edges of the northern ridge. The mountain breathed slower, deeper, as if it had been waiting for this moment. Lin Yu felt it begin just before dawn, not pain at first, pressure. A deep, rolling pull low in his body, ancient and purposeful. He woke with a sharp inhale, fingers clutching instinctively at the furs beneath him. Han Zhen, he whispered. Han Zhen was awake instantly. He had not truly slept since the battle. Not deeply, not without one hand always reaching for Lin Yu in the dark. He was at Lin Yu's side before the second contraction finished cresting. It's time, Lin Yu said, voice steady despite the tremor beneath it. Han Zhen's breath caught, not with fear but awe. Yes, he said softly, it is. The birthing chamber was warm with firelight and stone vein heat. Elders moved with calm efficiency, their voices low and reassuring. This was not the first child born of the ridge, but it was the firstborn of resonance, of bond freely chosen and fiercely defended. Lin Yu gripped Han Zhen's hands as the contractions deepened. This was not the sharp agony he had once feared. It was powerful, demanding, relentless, but it felt right, as if his body knew exactly what to do. You're doing perfectly, Han Zhen murmured, forehead pressed to Lin Yu's temple. I'm here, I won't let go. Lin Yu believed him. When the final moment came, it was overwhelming. Heat and pressure and a cry torn from his chest. But it ended in release, in life. A small, fierce wail filled the chamber. For a heartbeat the world stopped. Then an elder laughed through tears. An alpha, she announced softly, strong, healthy. They placed the child against Lin Yu's chest. He sobbed then, openly, freely, as the tiny warm weight settled over his heart. The child's scent bloomed faintly, unmistakably theirs, stone and winter, and something bright beneath it all. Han Zhen sank to his knees beside them, one hand braced on the bed, the other hovering, almost afraid to touch. He's real, Han Zhen whispered. Lin Yu smiled through tears. He always was. Han Zhen finally gathered them both into his arms, his composure breaking at last as he pressed a reverent kiss to Lin Yu's hair, then to the crown of their child's head. My heart, he breathed, both of you. Outside, the mountain howled, not in warning, in welcome. The reckoning came with the thaw. The imperial court could no longer pretend ignorance. Too many witnesses, too many failed campaigns, too many whispered rumors of an Omega who had refused, and lived. Madame Zhao was brought north in chains. She arrived in silk, dulled by travel, pride still clinging stubbornly to her posture. She expected a tribunal, a negotiation, perhaps even mercy. She was wrong. The ridge did not drag her to a dungeon. They brought her to the open stone terrace overlooking the valley. Lin Yu stood there already, his child cradled securely in his arms, Han Zhen at his side. Madame Zhao froze when she saw them, alive, whole, loved. You, she hissed, composure cracking for the first time. You should have died quietly. Lin Yu regarded her calmly. I tried, he said. You wouldn't let me. Her gaze dropped to the child. No, Madame Zhao whispered. That's not possible. Han Zhen stepped forward, his presence alone enough to make guards stiffen. It is, he said coldly. And it ends today, Madame Zhao laughed weakly. You think you've won? The Empire has already ruled, Qin Ruhan said, stepping into view. They've stripped you of rank, of property, of name, Madame Zhao's face drained of color. You sold a child, Qin Ruhan continued. You murdered an Omega to save your bloodline. You tried to turn love into currency. Lin Yu stepped closer. You told me I was disposable, he said quietly, that my life was worth less than hers. He looked down at his son. This life exists because I chose otherwise. Madame Zhao fell to her knees. "Please," she whispered. "I raised you." Lin Yu's voice did not waver. "You owned me," he said. "That is not the same." The judgment was simple: exile. No name, no protection, no return. The mountain watched as she was led away, small and shaking, stripped of the power she had wielded so carelessly. Lin Yu did not feel triumph. He felt close. Years later, stories would spread south, of an alpha who bowed to his mate without shame, of an omega who chose himself and changed the law, of a child born under falling snow, whose cry made a mountain answer. But here, in the north, life went on quietly. Lin Yu watched his son take his first steps on stone worn smooth by generations. Han Zhen laughed, open and unguarded, as the child toddled straight into his arms. The future was uncertain, but it was theirs, and the mountain, having witnessed love freely claimed, would remember, always, the end. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you loved it, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon for more amazing content. Drop a comment with your favorite moment, and I'll see you in the next one.